Howdy ho guys, and welcome to another Virginia vlog. God damn, is it hot in here. I'm actually in, I'm in my car, like I mentioned in my last entry, I thought I'd come out to a park, and it's actually Danson Park, I think it's called. It's in Bexley Heath. I'm just here, because I just Googled some places to go to, because I wanted like a new kind of place to kind of like film this vlog, and also just to check out like a new place, explore more of London. I live in London, and like my knowledge of London is pretty shocking actually. So like I thought I'd check it out. But yeah, I'm in Danson Park, and it's I'm having a great time here, and it's really nice weather. But yeah, so in the last entry I talked about how to build a life that you love, which is, as I said in that entry, a key, or rather the key, one of the keys towards building a life that you love. I think it's, I would say the key. It's like, if you want to build a life that you love, you have to start to trust in your love, and to place your love before all of those crappy, obstacles and excuses that stop you from doing what you love. Because as I said in the previous part, a lot of us have it in our minds, this kind of fucked up order where what a life that we love is the destination, and we have all of these obstacles, in front of us that stop us from doing that, from building that life that we love, right? But as I said in that entry, what we must do is instead start to do what we love right now. Release all expectation. Don't expect to become a master or anything like that. It doesn't matter. Just start doing what you love right now, and don't let anyone else or even yourself ask for permission for that. Give yourself permission to start to do things that you love. And in this entry I wanted to extend with basically, this is actually related to some of the other entries I've done, where I've talked about, I mentioned this entry in my previous entry, which was like, love is the path to mastery. And like a few other entries I've done since then, where I talk about, essentially, one of my key teachings on this channel, as I've mentioned in the past, is tapping into your sensitivity, right? Why do I say this? Because the way that we feel has a much bigger impact and influence on our lives than we tend to think about or consider in today's world. And rather we live in a very exciting time now, where like people are, people like myself, and I'm sure many of you watching this, who are starting to realize the importance of, people in the business world call it EQ, I call it, emotional intelligence / emotional mastery, just understanding feelings, understanding emotion. And towards that, there is now a breakthrough in consciousness, primarily for myself, but also, if anyone else is kind of undergoing the same kind of journey that I'm going through, we are having a breakthrough where we realize that an emotional goal, such as happiness, such as fulfillment, all of these, or excitement, or whatever it is, right? All of these things, where we once thought these things to be a result of doing things that spawn these emotions within us. For example, like I mentioned in the previous entry, we have to, doing things that we love in order to feel love, right? As you connect more and more to the things that you love, you start to realize that the feeling of love itself is something that's not necessarily a result of doing any specific thing. Yes, we do things that we love in order to feel love, but also you start to realize that that love, the feeling of love, is what you're after, and not necessarily those other things that you have attributed to love. If that makes sense? It's like, it's kind of a weird thing, you know, you have to kind of go through it to understand what I'm talking about, but like, you know, well, the opposite of this, you know, the kind of issue that I wanted to attack in this entry is like, this whole kind of mainstream, you know, thought, essentially, paradigm, that people have when it comes to love, which is that you must earn love, you know, and society, I use that word, society, because it's just like so catch-all and like convenient, but like, whoever it is, you know, whoever like is your kind of patriarch, let's just say, you know, has promised us love, you know, has promised that this is love, you know, well, you can have love if you do this, you know, you can have love if you earn this much money in a year. You can have love if you find this partner, you know, this romantic partner for yourself. You can, you know, find love if you buy this product, you know. Does this sound familiar to you? Of course it does, right? You know, it's like, it's how we're marketed things. It's how, you know, adverts are like tailored to us, right? It's like, it's the promise of love, isn't it? You know, that's how we sell things to each other in society. It's like, if you have this, you will then feel love, right? And that's fine if you want to sell things, you know, like, I don't particularly like it, but like, you know, I have made the observation that like, this is how, you know, marketing works, you know, you have to kind of like, you have to kind of paint this picture, this really pretty picture for someone to be attracted to, you know, kind of a thing. But like, the problem that comes out from this, that arises from this, is that we don't realize that love is something that is ours. You know, love is something that we already have. You know, the amazing thing, you know, the kind of amazing yet like really, really like mystical thing about human beings, you know, or like more specifically, like, you know, the way that, you know, our emotions work, you know, how our feelings work, is that like, we can actually create them in ourselves, you know, like it's based on the way that we think, you know, because, you know, it's based on our paradigm, you know, which is essentially like the way that we think things should be. Like, you know, like I mentioned in the previous entry, you know, we start off thinking that, you know, like building a life that we love is something that can only be possible once we've surmounted all of these other obstacles that are in our way, you know, whether that be, you know, responsibilities to people, you know, to family, to friends, or like, you know, financial restraints, or like whatever, you know, the case may be, whatever the excuse may be, right? You know, that's our initial kind of paradigm, right? But like the paradigm I offered in the previous entry was flip it around, you know, instead of like making a life that you love something that exists in the future that you must reach, make it something that can happen right now, right? So that instead of like thinking that you must earn a life that you love, like own it right now. You know, give yourself permission to deserve love, because love is your birthright, right? And like, and I, you know, of course, I talked about building a life that you love in terms of like building a life that's enjoyable, essentially. The same is true of love, right? And like love is, you know, the general, you know, again, enjoyment, love, joy, you know, fulfillment, all of these things are essentially the same. You know, we give them different labels, but like it's like, it's that sense of connection that we all yearn for in life, you know, like happiness, right? You know, all of these things, all of these labels we give this feeling of like connection. But yeah, you know, like, so we, you know, the default paradigm in society is that, you know, again, we must earn love, you know. But the thing is, like, it may seem like, again, you know, this is the weird thing. This is what I'm trying to get at, is that like, when you start to connect with things that you love, and you start to experiment and tap into your sensitivity and like experience all of these emotional nuances, like these energetic nuances, you start to realize that like stimulus and sensation are not necessarily connected, right? you have a stimulus, you know, you have something that happens that you symbolically register, you know, in your mind, logically. And then there is a response in your body, you know, sensation, feeling. And, you know, initially we kind of like can join these things together. Like we say, okay, stimulus or A is there, therefore B is present. Like, so A is, you know, is causing B. But the more that you play with, like, you know, the flexibility of these things, right? You know, another concept I love to kind of throw out there that I coined that is pretty cool in my opinion is the axis of perception, which is, it's well, you know, it's the idea, it's a symbol that there are two axes to perception. One which is symbolic, you know, there's to do with things and labels and names and things like that, you know, events, actions, things, you know, things that we can conceptualize of. And then there is the horizontal axis, which is, you know, energetic, which is to do with like the way that we, like what meanings things hold, you know, like how we feel about them, you know, things like that, you know, context, right? But like the kind of the nugget of wisdom behind that concept is that like these two axes are orthogonal. Or another way of saying this is that like these two axes don't necessarily touch, right? You can find connections between these two axes. You know, obviously you have to have a label. You have to have something that you can call something, that you can attach like a symbol to something, right? So that you can conceptualize of it. For example, you know, human. You know, I am a human. You know, you have to have that label of human in order to like conceptualize or like to like understand what someone is talking about, you know, or like to like be able to like form an image in your mind of human. You know, this is human, right? And then, but then you must also have an energetic response to that thing. You know, whether that thing makes you feel good or it makes you feel bad or it makes you feel indifferent. You know, there is a context to that thing, right? That we've assigned a label, right? A symbol. You know, and so like both these things exist, but they don't necessarily overlap, right? They don't necessarily affix to one another. You know, in the same way that like, you know, anything that has components in it, like, you know, for example, like an actual graph. You know, you have like a line, right? But like we can separate that line into its components, into its like X and Y coordinates, like, or you can have like, you know, a TV image that is comprised of, you know, color components. You know, you have like red, you know, have the primary colors. I think that's how it works. I'm not actually sure, but like you have like red, green, and blue, right? And then those things mix. You know, well, you know, component is like this. You know, you have like, you know, the green, the blue, and the red components like in a component input, like for the TV, and those things mix. But like, are they necessarily affixed to one another? No. You know, like they're their own separate components, right? And this is what you discover with the axis of perception, but then also what I'm talking about in terms of love, right? And like a thing, you do something, and like, you know, it's an action that is mechanical. Right, but that thing holds with it the feeling of love. But like that feeling of love is not necessarily attached to that thing, right? And so like you realize this, and it means that like love is something that you can create in yourself, right? Anyway, kind of waffling a bit, but like the problem that people have is that they think that you have to earn love. That like love is attached, is affixed to these things that people tell them, right? You know, you must earn a lot of money. If you're a man, you must earn a lot of money. For example, you know, I use, you know, romantic relationships because they're probably the most like kind of suspect, you know, culprit and the biggest culprit in this all of this. But like, because, you know, we all do things for sex, right? But like, it's like, you know, as a man, you have to earn a lot of money. You have to be strong. You have to have a six-pack. You know, you have to have tattoos. You know, you have to look like David Beckham. You know, in order for you to be deserving of love, right? Or if you're a woman, you have to look like whatever celebrity, you You know, you have to pretty much, in terms of looks, be a certain celebrity. You know, that's the thing. That's the kind of thinking that you're sold, right? But you know, my message is, this is fucked up. Of course, you know, this is always my message. It's like, don't believe 100% what these people tell you. You know, don't trust in the promise of love. Trust in the feeling of love. This is the message I have in this entry, right? Don't trust the promise, which is derived from something external. You know, someone has told you, or like, you know, media has drilled it into you. But like, essentially, it then becomes part of your mental thoughtscape, right? Where you think that, you know, like you have, like, it's a promise of love, because your mind conceptualizes of love, you know. Oh, if only I do this action, or if I attain this status, you know, I will have love, you know. But the thing is, love is a feeling. Love is a fucking feeling. You'll realize this the more that you tap into your sensitivity, the more that you develop emotional intelligence, EQ, you know. You realize that love is a feeling, you know, that feelings are something that arise in your body. They are a sensation. They're not something that you think about, right? So, and the more that you tap into things that you love, you know, initially, you know, this is how I did it. You know, I'm sure that this is probably how all of us do it. But like, when we start to build a life that we love and do more things that we love and connect with the things that we love and start to give ourselves more and more permission, because before that, you know, obviously, you know, a lot of us, like, we're miserable, right? But then, like, you know, you listen to like the self-help guru, or like whoever it is who tells you, like, you know, no, you can own love. You can own the things that you love in life. You can own your passions. You can own your joy, you know, and you start to do that yourself. You realize, as you become more sensitive to it, that like love is a feeling that arises in your body, and it isn't necessarily connected to an idea, right? And like, this is very difficult to explain, because, like, you know, obviously I'm using language, I'm using speech to relay this, and it's like, speech is basically your mind, right? But like, this is not love. You know, the mental promise, language, is not love. When I say I love you, you know, and like, it doesn't matter how much I mean it, but like, when you receive those words, I love you, you know, you may feel love. The feeling of love may arise within you, but you may not. You know, it depends whether I'm a creep or not, right? It depends whether I'm a creepazoid or not, you know. But you know, that's a valid point, though, you know. I may say I love you with all my heart, you're beautiful, but the feeling of love that arises within you is yours to dictate. Think about it. You can choose to feel love as a result of that, or you can choose not to feel love as a result of that. Sometimes that choice isn't conscious. You know, you might just not like the fact that I say that. If I'm not someone you're attracted to, for example, you won't like that. You'll be like, okay, well, I don't really like you, you know. But if you are attracted to me, you might feel it, right? But like, do you see that I love you are the words? They're the promise, right? You know, 6-figure salary, you know, Victoria's Secret underwear, and whatever the fuck it is, right? You know, that is the promise. You know, that is the symbol. But the feeling of love is something that you have control over, you know. And so, trust that feeling, you know. If you don't know what I'm saying, take the practical steps, you know. Listen to the promise, you know. The way that we learn is like doing the opposite, right? You know, or rather, like, you know, yeah, you know, like if you don't know what I'm talking about, then like you have to kind of do it. You kind of have to trust the promise, right? You know, it's like, what are you fucking talking about? You know, you're not making any sense. And so, like, if you don't know what I'm saying about the feeling of love, right? Do things that you love. You know, start to like really put time in for your interests, you know, music, art, you know, whatever it might be, pottery, you know, haberdashery. I don't even know if that's a fucking thing, but like, yeah, you know, like, do them more and more, and that feeling that you get, you know, when you're like, oh my God, like I'm so happy right now, you know, I'm so fulfilled. That feeling of positivity, of fulfillment, of love, that is the feeling, right? Trust that, you know. What do I mean by trust it? You know, I mean like make decisions. Let that feeling guide you, because initially we don't have a choice. You know, like I said, you know, like when we don't know what the feeling of love is, we have to trust the promise. We have to like be like, okay, I have to do these things in order to feel love. Okay, cool. You know, I like music, so I need to listen to music, right? Or I like art, so I have to do art. I have to, you know, I need, like, in order for a woman to like notice me, I have to earn this much money. You know, we have nothing but those to go on, right? But like, as we experiment and move forwards, you know, to like towards even just the idea of love, right? We start to understand what the feeling of love is. And it's that feeling of love and positivity, right? And joy. And it's at that point that we must, this is crucial, you know, we must, well, it's always a balance. It's always a balance, right? You know, it's always a balance between the head and the heart. But like, if you want a life of happiness, like I do, you know, like, follow that feeling. Use that feeling as a guide, you know. When you're torn between the promise of love and the feeling of love, choose the feeling. When your head is telling you that you have to do a certain thing, because the love, the ego, the mind, you know, slash the ego, you know, it wants the best for you. You know, like, you know, I slate it. I'm always like, fucking ego, you know, fucking mind. But like, honestly, you know, in its own fucked up way, sometimes, like, you know, in its own subconscious shadow-based way, like, it wants the best for you. You know, it doesn't want you to come to, you know, it doesn't want any harm to come to you. But like, just the way that it does it is fucked up, basically. You know, it's negative and fear-based, right? But like, and so like, understand that and realize that your heart, the feeling of love, you know, your heart, that's a more pure symbol of happiness. You know, and you know, the scariest thing is, well, this is going to take courage, basically. You know, the key components of this, like, I make it sound so easy, you know, just follow your feelings, right? The flip side of this is it's going to take a fuck ton of courage, because your head is going to give you a million reasons why following your heart is not a good idea, or following the feeling is not a good idea. Oh, I have this responsibility. Oh, like, if I do this, like, all my fans will leave me and I'll have no money. Oh, if I do this, like, people will think that I'm, like, you know, like, really kind of, like, wishy-washy and not serious about what I'm trying to do. The mind will give you so many excuses, but, like, if your heart is telling you, or you get that feeling of love when like, you think of something that your head disagrees with, follow your heart. Or better yet, you know, find a middle ground, basically, you know. It sounds a lot better to be like, follow your heart, you know, but like, in reality, it's more of a balancing act, you know. Like, you have your heart to lead you, but then like, you do have to bring your head back in and be like, okay, is this sensible? You know, like, I have to do this in the most sensible way possible. I have to make sure that my heart is satiated, you know, the love of my heart, you know. That's my priority, but at the same time, I can't like be an idiot, you know. I can't just like throw caution to the wind, you know. I do have responsibilities, you know. So it is a balance, right? But like, I hope, you know, this message has been clear to you in this entry. You know, that's my message, honestly. You know, it's that there is a difference between the feeling of love and the promise of love, right? The promise of love, like, you know, to summarize again, when you think logically that like you have to do something before, you have to do something, basically, and that will lead you to love, right? But like, and you'll realize there is a promise because you don't feel loving in that moment. You know, your head is telling you, you know, no, do this, you'll feel loving, but your heart doesn't feel love, right? The next time, like, you think that you have to do something, like, delve into your feelings, tap into your sensitivity. Do you feel love in that moment? Do you feel inspired to take action? Because if you don't, you're not leading from the feeling of love, you're leading from the promise of love, and that might fuck you up, you know, essentially. But yeah, you know, yeah, because like again, ultimately, like, all of us want to live a life of love, you know. Like, it sounds corny when I say it like that, but like, you know, if you ask anyone what their ultimate goal in life is, it's to be happy, you know. Why would you want anything else, you know? Like, yes, you might need to make some money to do that, but like, no one's going to be like, I want to make, you know, $1 million, you know, I want to be 7-figure, like, a year. that's my ultimate goal. No, like, you know, and like when people get to that stage, they realize that, like, you know, it's the love that they want. You know, it's the stability, it's the feeling of safety, it's the feeling that they want, right? So yeah, you know, if that is the case, you know, yes, be smart, you know, you like listen to other people, you know, but then like you also have to put weight in how you feel, right? You know, ride the knife edge, you know, that's another thing. Like I urge you to watch that video as well, you know, like world isn't black and white, you know. Yes, follow your heart, but sometimes you do have to listen to your head. But then you listen to your heart and listen to your head. It's like a breath, right? You inhale, then you exhale, right? This is how you deal with paradox in life, you know. You don't think about it and think yourself into like a, you know, a mental stupor. You think, okay, purge all of this shit from my mind. What do I need to do in this moment, right? Do that, and then you'll know what to do in the next moment, and then you know what to do in the next moment, and that's the key, right? You know, this is the key to like what I should have mentioned this in the previous entry. We're like, this is how you do it. You baby step, right? You don't think in terms of this massive, impenetrable thing that you'll never like, you know, you'll never destroy or you'll never be able to attack. You break it down. You focus on one thing at a time, and that's how you succeed, right? So anyway, I hope that was insightful. I believe that to be very important, you know, this distinction, and to understand, because this is about motivation. This is how you live life, right? You know, do you want to live life like always chasing around things, but never being satisfied, and like always having this kind of background misery to you, but you don't want to admit it, and then that kind of fear towards, you know, that misery, like you don't want other people to find out, you don't want yourself to consciously acknowledge it, so you become more and more subconscious, and you become more and more miserable. Do you really want to live like that? You know, I don't. You know, like I've had enough of that in my past. You know, I want to just connect with the things I love. You know, instead of like going the long way around and going through this labyrinth that the mind is telling you have to go through, connect with love now. The feeling is there. It's yours to control. So cool. I hope this entry has been helpful, as always, and I hope you guys are having a great day, and I will catch you in the next entry. Look forward to it. Peace out, guys.